My name is Jim Wunderman. I'm the president and CEO of the Bay Area Council, an honor I've held for the last decade or so. And so if you probably all know this, but in the spirit of the thing, the Bay Area Council is an organization formed almost 70 years ago by government and business leaders of the time to think about the future of the Bay Area, and our organization has been involved at the forefront of many of the important conversations as we went from being San Francisco and Oakland and Berkeley to becoming a really important region in the world, and a region that's admired by people around the globe for its forward-thinking, progressive nature, for its innovation, for its culture, for its success. And so we're part of that. And today we're in the heart of Silicon Valley, in a very, very successful place. And although he's not here, I want to thank John Sobrato, who is one of the people who actually built. How many of you know John Sobrato and his story? So John was one of the people who actually built Silicon Valley. He and his partners back in the day saw the opportunity to create what has now taken for granted as the capital of technology and intellectual innovation in the world. From a real estate perspective, he saw that opportunity. It was very, very successful. And as a result, of his success, he's done a lot of giving back. So this whole center, this building and that building, are made available to nonprofit organizations for the price of zero, just to enable the nonprofit community to be able to thrive here in Silicon Valley. And he has several centers like this in Silicon Valley. So he has one in San Jose and one in Milpitas, and this beautiful place here in Redwood City. So I don't know if there's anyone here from the Sobrato Center, but I want to just thank John and his family and his team and their foundation for the work that they do. If you talk to John these days, all he wants to talk about is his foundation work. I want to recognize we have three sponsors of today's event, and they are Marvell, and their co-founder Wei-Li Dai and her team are here. So thank you, Wei-Li. We also have Hanson Bridget. Andrew Giacomini is a member of our executive committee of the Bay Area Council, and Hanson Bridget Law Firm, one of the great top regional law firms in the Bay Area. So thank you, Hanson Bridget, for your leadership. And finally, to Lee Hecht Harrison. Peg McAllister, also a member of the executive committee of the Bay Area Council, and you'll be hearing more from Peg and from Wei-Li in a little while. So thank you for your service to our organization in the region. This is it's a bit of a humbling experience for me as a man and a white man to be standing before this group to talk about the subject of how we make help create an environment where women are equal partners with men in our society and our business world. It's a conversation. It's not. This isn't the first such conversation that's been had, but I think today's is going to be a little bit different, and I think especially important, because one of the things that we're trying to achieve with this process is we're trying to help to bring more men into the conversation about how to make this work. And too often the conversation has just been a conversation of women with other women about how to achieve success. And that's really important, and that's going to be part of the conversation today too. But this is we're going to try to do a little bit of groundbreaking here today, and I think maybe the beginning of the next great leap forward in the movement. I have to admit, as somebody who started life, I'm obviously a baby boomer. I think a late baby boomer. I don't know. They're better at dividing these things up today than they used to be. So we were a pretty broad category of folks. But the way I was brought up back in New York City, we weren't thinking much about this topic, and I took it for granted that men were basically in charge of everything, and that's the way the world was. I was taught to be that way. And I didn't really question it, but a few things, one of the great things about the human experience is that we're capable of changing the way we think about things, and so we evolve. as human beings, we evolve as cultures, and I've had some evolution take place in my own life, and I certainly hope I'm still evolving, and will continue to evolve for quite some time, I hope, that be able to continue to learn and see things a little differently. A few things happened along the way for me that were really important things, and I'm reminded of one of them because I just had a meeting with Senator Feinstein on a tough issue here in the Bay Area, which has to do with sea level rise and the threat, and in this particular location, the very real threat that at some point we could be devastated by the kind of flooding that affected New Orleans and the northeast seaboard of the United States. And Senator Feinstein has been a passionate leader about making sure that the Bay environment is recovered and protected, and also that the folks who live around the Bay and depend on it are protected from what could be the same kind of surging storm waters that affected those other places. So we just had that meeting. Well, back at a very lucky point in my career in the 1980s, I worked for then Mayor Feinstein in San Francisco, and I learned firsthand, I consider her to be my mentor. I'm not just saying this for your benefit. You could read anywhere I'm asked this question, where did you derive leadership from in your life? It's always been Dianne Feinstein. And I was reminded in the meeting this morning, and I'm bleeding in a few places, but I just what a powerful, thoughtful, cogent leader that she is, and how fortunate the state of California has to have her representation in Washington, and frankly, how important it is for the country to have somebody like that in leadership. It would have been unthinkable just a little while ago in our country to have someone in the position of U.S. Senator, much less someone like Dianne, who was the first woman mayor of San Francisco. And so I was fortunate to spend 5 years with her, learning from who I think is the best about how to lead an organization. And I wouldn't have gone on to become chief of staff later in my career to Mayor Jordan or head of the Bay Area Council, because I wouldn't have known how to do it had it not been for Dianne Feinstein. So that was a lucky break for me, because after working for her, I never questioned again the ability of a woman to take a position of leadership like that. And being mayor of San Francisco, as I think many of you know, it's a very, very tough and demanding job. Later in my career, I worked for a woman named Ellen Ritchie, who is now the general counsel of Visa. At the time was the general counsel of a company called Providian Financial, and I was hired by her to run their external affairs. And Ellen is absolutely one of the smartest business people and lawyers I've known in my life. So again, I had this experience, so it became rather natural to me to see women in very strong leadership roles, and rather than to just accept it, to kind of revel in having the opportunity to work for and learn from people like that. It's been very fortunate in my life. So yeah, I think this issue of gender partnerships, gender equity, is for me it occurs on two fronts. One is there's a moral imperative that's part of this. That's just about our world, our society, growing up to the reality that women and men have to walk this earth together and share equally in this domain. And I think it's, for me, it's become an increasingly clear imperative, and one which if there ever was any question in my mind about that, which I'm not sure there was, it's very, very clear at this point in my life. This was also helped by having two daughters. So I have two daughters, both college grads, both wonderful women, early stages of their professional careers, Monica and Allie. They're here today in spirit. And when you're the parent of daughters, the father of daughters, it's very, very, and you experience the kind of things that they experience in the workplace. My younger daughter, Allie, worked in a startup company last year, and there were 9 employees, and 8 of them were men, and there was just her, and it was pretty rough going for her. and she would tell me these stories, and it's just so personal, and you just so much want your daughter to be able to have every opportunity that your child would have if that child were a man. And so, on that level, it becomes very, very personal and very eye-opening. I've been surrounded by many other influential women in my life. Some of them are here today. We have an incredible board of directors and executive committee of the Bay Area Council, many of whom are women. One of the things I set out to do when I became the CEO of the Bay Area Council was to ensure that the history that we had was that the folks who were the people in the business community, the CEOs, take 2-year stints at being chair. The organization was formed in 1945. When I became the CEO, we'd never had a woman as chair of the Bay Area Council. I determined that one of my legacies would be that no longer be the case. So a couple of years ago, I was really proud when Janet Lampkin, president of the Bank of America, became the first woman to chair the Bay Area Council. And she was just as qualified, if not more so, than any other man I've experienced in the job, and I've experienced a bunch. But the fact that she was a woman taking on that role meant a lot to the women in our business community and to the Bay Area as a region. And I think it said a lot about the organization. And so I was really proud of that. And among the other influential women in my life is my wife, Christina, who's here today, who's studying to be a clinical psychologist at the Wright Institute in Berkeley. And as part of her very challenging work to take on that most human of challenges of person-to-person, person-to-family counseling, learning about, focusing on issues around gender, around equality, around the difficulties that therapists face when sitting across from a client who's different from them, comes from a different kind of background and so forth, or doesn't necessarily share the same culture. So thank you for Christina for, if I get off track at all, she reminds me to get back on track very, 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 very quickly. So those are largely moral issues. There's also the economic issues, and one of those came to bear for me pretty recently. We have this executive committee, and it meets, and like any meeting like this one here before, all meetings start with a bunch of people hanging around and talking, and then ending up sitting down and listening and being part of an agenda. And so I was at such a meeting a few months ago, and one of our executive committee members is a fellow named Kaushik Rajapal, who's a leading partner, managing partner at McKinsey, from McKinsey later. And I wasn't in this conversation. He was talking to somebody else, and it was a man. And he was just saying, they were talking about the U.S. economy. And Kaushik was observing the state of the U.S. economy, which isn't too great, but is better than it could be. And he said, unprompted, the only reason that the U.S. economy is in as good a shape that it's in is because of the emergence of women into the workforce and into leadership. That's what he said. And this is McKinsey, and they're no slouch when it comes to analyzing stuff. And so I heard that, I kind of went like that. I thought, wow, that, I knew a lot of things, but I didn't really know that. So we did some research on this and found, there are some really important points to be made that I wasn't aware of at the time, just how pervasive women have become in this economy. I'll tell you, you'll probably hear more of this in the afternoon, but from the percentage, 73% of consumer activity in this country is the result of activities by women, 73%. The lion's share of graduate degrees and college degrees, well more than the majority, are held by women. And women actually hold more of mid-management positions in this country than men do, which is an interesting fact. When you put all those things together and you recognize that baby boomers like me will be retiring in the next decade or so, 5 to 10 years, the opportunity and the necessity of women moving into leadership, it's not just a moral one, it's also an economic imperative. But there are obstacles. And that's really what we're talking about today, is how are organizations, how are companies addressing the challenge of ensuring that women, with all they bring, with the smarts, with the I think in many cases when it comes to comparing with men with often a better emotional context for dealing with lots of issues, and just the very grounded work ethic of women I've been colleagues with during my career bring to bear. How can we make sure that we're properly fostering that? So it's a very, very exciting topic. As the head of a business association here in the Bay Area, that's an important leadership group. It's really a pleasure for me to be able to talk about this. And again, somewhat humbling, being the man standing up here before many women, although fortunately a number of men, to begin having this conversation. So let's begin having the conversation. I want to introduce my partner in this, who has. Without whom I don't know that I'd be up doing this today. And she is Rayona Sharpnack, and I think many of you who are involved in this know her. She founded the Institute for Women's Leadership, I got it backwards, in 1991. And this is a groundbreaking organization, go back to 1991, in the work that it and she has done. And this was in the US, in Canada, and in Australia. She's been involved in it, and she'll tell you more of this. She's been involved in education, in sports, and in business. She has helped numerous Fortune 500 companies and government organizations find the right path when it comes to driving the issue of women in leadership posts and helping women succeed in ways women had not, in areas women had not achieved in the past. She's been highly recognized by many institutions in the media. She's written, latest book is called Trade Up, 5 Steps for Redesigning Your Leadership and Life from the Inside Out. And she's also one of the several featured authors of the groundbreaking book, Enlightened Power, How Women Are Transforming the Practice of Leadership. So as a student of the game, I'm really interested in hearing from Rayona this afternoon and a number of the folks who will speak today. And I hope, this is not intended to have any finality whatsoever. This is really the beginning. We had an event a couple of months ago with the San Francisco Commission on the Department of the Status of Women. Great organization represented here today and be part of today's conversation. I think what Rayona is going to bring to us is maybe some thoughts about where we go from here, and we'll probably close with that conversation. So let me bring up Rayona Sharpnack, and I hope we have a great day, and please participate in all the conversations.
Okay. Well, as Jim said, I'm not a stranger to standing. Oh, I'm supposed to stand in front of here. Sorry. Not a stranger to standing before rooms full of women and talking about leadership. But today's particularly exciting because I'm here as co-founder of GenderAllies with my colleague Rayona, who you'll meet later, and our other colleague Robin Terrell, who's in the new Czech Republic, but with us in spirit. And our vision has been from the beginning to bring the issue of gender partnership up to the light of day so that we can see for the future of our organizations and for our communities that the sustainability of our society is really only possible through the full partnership of men and women. So we're going to ask people to introduce themselves today using a certain protocol. So I'm going to introduce myself using, there we go. My name is Rayona Sharpnack. I'm co-founder of GenderAllies, and why gender partnership matters to me is because I have a daughter and will have grandchildren and will have great-grandchildren, and I want every one of them to have the full opportunity to make a difference with their lives. So it's a different way to kind of introduce ourselves than our usual name, rank, and serial number, but we're actually going to ask you to take a minute to just look at that and say to yourself, why gender partnership matters to me? Why do I say it matters to me? Now, here's the challenge. We're actually going to have you say it to the people at your table, but we're just going to have you say it in one sentence. This is the kind of mixture of thoughtfulness and meaningful dialogue that we want to have for this, is that we really look across sectors, across issues maybe related to our sector, and really talk about what are the deeper issues related to gender partnership that haven't been tackled collectively? So I have the enviable job today of being the conductor of the symphony. So this is the woodwinds, and these are the percussionists and the brass, and so everyone's got their instrument today. And my job will be to bring us together, kind of in a overall combination of insight, deeper thinking, deeper looking. One of the things about these gatherings that has happened over the years, and I've been to a number of them, given I started 25 years ago, is we call it the women talking to women about women phenomenon. And then up from there, which is, we have a problem, we should fix it, et cetera, was, okay, some people are actually starting and working on that and so forth, and so we should go through best practices, and we should find out who's doing what in the marketplace. And the Department on the Status of Women did a wonderful event in January where they have 10 companies that are really doing a great job at best practices. But that only gets us so far, and I want to use a metaphor in the room, if you will. How many of you would like to be more physically fit? Raise your hand if you'd like to be more physical. I always love it. So many hands go up. Okay. Now, the question is, how many of you know what to do to be more physically fit? Raise your hand if you know. Exactly. I rest my case, Your Honor. So if just knowing better meant doing better, then we would all be more fit and all that. And if just knowing that gender equity is inequity, hi Venda, gender inequity is fundamentally wrong and also economically a disaster, then of course we would all take up the charge and go tackle it. Except that there's something more fundamental that we have to deal with if we're going to have a sustainable change across any part of our society. And that work is the work of gender allies that we do with individuals and organizations about getting to the deeper context. You could say the contextual roots of what makes people, how are people wired is another way to say it. What's the hardwiring for human beings, and how is it that 7 billion people on the planet are all kind of fundamentally wired the same way, even though each one of us is unique. Each one of us has a thumbprint that is unique and discernible from everyone else on the planet. But then there's our sameness, and that sameness is what we want to look at today. If we could go, there we go, there's the slide. You're amazing. By the way, Virginia Dawson is absolutely a rock star. I just want to, she's really the puppeteer. Jim and I are the marionettes. Is that the right name for the little puppets? Yeah, she's the puppeteer. So anyway, this notion of context, I'd like to walk through this model with you so we can have kind of a shared language, much like mathematics is a shared language. No matter where you go in the world, mathematics is mathematics, and it doesn't require a special kind of dialect or translation. Well, the work of context is like that, in that if you think of each of us individually, human beings are contextual beings. We operate from context, we operate from meaning. We look at the world through a series of filters related to how we were raised, what beliefs we have, what traditions we have, what our socioeconomic condition was, our gender. All of that informs the contextual reality that we operate inside of. And that tapestry of context is what gives rise to our behavior. So our actions, what we do and don't do, is a function of the context. So let me grab a note here because I have some examples to give you to relate to this. So if I have a context that, gee, this gender inequity issue is a pretty big issue, I'm just one person among 7 billion, I can't make a difference in something that big. That would be a contextual belief, that I'm just one person, I can't make a difference. And so that would affect what things I would take on, what I would do or what I would not do, or what I would say or what I would not say. And then that would affect the impact that I have. And some of that impact would be desirable and some of that impact would be undesirable. So in the same way, organizations have context, only it's called culture. And there's a culture within organizations, and you're going to hear about some wonderful ones today. But the culture is kind of the collective belief system about how we are as an organization, if you want to make it here, how you need to be, and what we're committed to for our future. So culture is very common. A lot of people understand that, work on that, and so forth. But if you put these two together and you start to look at, okay, I'm an individual with a context, a belief system, a fundamental operating system about how I see myself, how I see my role in the world, how I see others, and all of that gives me the impact that I can have. But I'm inside a larger ecosystem. And in these larger ecosystems called organizations, so whether it's governments or academic institutions or corporations or emerging businesses, there's a culture that I operate inside of. And you could say that organizational culture trumps individual context, that how you are in that ecosystem gets shaped by the culture. So the conversation we wanted to have today was much more of this contextual dimension to change. Like, what is it going to take for each of us in this room, and we're the ones that showed up, so what is it going to take for us? What is it going to take contextually for the culture of organizations to change such that the end result or the impact is full and equal gender partnership? So we want to do that deeper tissue work together. And so as we selected panelists and interviewed the panelists and designed the breakout groups, it's all intended to ask you to take a deeper look at you and take a deeper look at your organization. You know, what really is it going to take to have sustainable change in one of the most fundamental issues of our time? So this full partnership of men and women, if we don't have some deep contextual change, will continue drifting the way it's drifting. And I looked at the calendar today, I said, it's 2014. I was having this conversation back in the 70s, and many of you in the room are kind of going, I know, I'm old. So we got to wonder, what are we at work on, or what are we not at work on, that we need to be at work on to shift the collective conversation about the full partnership of men and women. So thanks to Jim's leadership and the Bay Area Council and our partnership with Department on the Status of Women, we have a venue here to start a culminating conversation of which this is the next step. So we're moving towards shifting the Bay Area region as the place in the United States, if not the world, where gender partnership is the imperative, and it's an economic imperative. Yes, it's a moral imperative, but we don't even have to fall on that sword as much as we have to see what are we facing as a region that can only be taken care of, things like the Bay and the rising seawaters, that's going to take the best of everybody. It's going to take 100% of our talent. It's going to take every man and woman in the conversation being listened to, being courageous, being bold about how we need to change. And that can only happen if we change our ecosystems so that that's the net result, is that every voice is heard and honored and respected as we look to solve these big problems. So give you a couple examples of like an organizational culture could be, some companies are gender partnership is the right thing to do, or women's equality is the right thing to do. As a region, we could relate to this as, well, you know, that's a women's issue, and as a man, I'm here to help. You know, men like to fix things, so I'm here to help you fix this thing. It's just wrong. All of that would be kind of inherited cultural context that would be insufficient for what we want to do today. So I'm going to ask us to be on the hunt, to be on the lookout for what are the trade-up contexts, what are the reinvented contexts, whether they be individual or cultural, that moves us from I'm one person that can't make a difference to anything I do will make a difference. And from gender partnership is the right thing to do to our whole organizational strategy depends on the full partnership of men and women. And as a region, to move from it's a women's issue where men are here to help to the region's economic future will be determined by how we leverage 100% of the talent. So that's our work today, and that's why this is a unique conversation. It's not just another meeting where we're gonna, introduce you to best practices, but we're gonna ask you to think deeper and to think together And together we're all smarter than any one of us. So what can we do to harvest the wisdom of this room? And we've got a few capture tools. So one of the things you'll see on your table is there's some Sharpie pens. Actually, I don't have one. I should have a little demo. Sharpie pens and Post-its. And the paper that's on the doors over there into the break room and where we'll be convening for breaks and so forth, we'd like you to capture insights, capture ahas, capture new kinds of questions to get at this contextual dimension of this issue, and then post them up there as we go throughout the day, throughout the afternoon. We're also going to ask you to practice a certain discipline called be interested, not interesting. Be interested, not interesting. So to kind of take the pressure off of I need to, demonstrate that I know something here, to be curious a little bit longer, like what do other people see that you don't see? What about this issue is stuck in a particular place that we haven't been able to free it up in our organizations? And we've got some fantastic leaders in the room. The people that are on the panel are among the best in the region to talk about these issues. And then, of course, the big elephant in the room is, where are the men? So we've got men of quality who are not threatened by women of equality in the room today, and I'd like to hear it for those. And then we have a few 100,000 other ones that aren't here that we need to get here. So it's all about our work together, and it's about finding out what are those contextual shifts that need to happen that make this as important for men as it is for women. So I'm going to ask you to capture your thoughts, your insights on the Post-its. I won't let you go on bio breaks until you at least write down one. That way we'll make sure we'll get them. We're going to capture those, transcribe them, and then send them out to you. Okay? All right, a couple other things. Oh, so this is one of my favorite quotes in my entire life. This is from an Aboriginal woman at the 1985 UN conference. And what she said was, if you've come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you've come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together. So that for me is the spirit of this. This isn't, anybody helping anyone out. It's like our liberation, our future, our economic abundance in the region is dependent upon the work we do here.